Hi everybody, my name is Professor Ellis and I'm going to be leading our Technical Writing English 2575 OL 70 class this fall semester. Just want to make sure everybody's in the right place. I also want to welcome you to our class. I understand that we've all been going through a lot these past months. But I want to assure you that I think that we can work together to make this class as successful to you all and what you all need to achieve as you move forward both in your degree programs and toward graduation, which is true for many of you. So you can see me here in this bigger picture. Normally though, like whenever I give my lectures, you'll just see me as a little talking head in the lower right hand corner of the screen, a video box that you happen to be watching. So I'm going to go over in today's class how to get situated, where we'll be doing the class online, which will be on OpenLab, which you can kind of see in the background behind me. We'll go over the syllabus so that you know exactly what is expected of you and how we're going to accomplish the things that you need to do in the class. I do want to tell you a little bit about me after that, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from, what my background is, both as an academic as well as a professional in the IT fields, which I think hopefully will allow you to see that I can draw on that other knowledge to make this both an enriching and interesting class for you, and I can also hopefully be able to give you advice on the major research projects that you'll be doing throughout the semester. And then toward the end of class, I'm going to give you a brief refresher lecture on some topics that you likely encountered in English 1101, 1121, which are also going to be of paramount importance for you all as writers in a technical writing class. And then I'll introduce the first weekly writing assignment and then just do a short recap of what you need to get done before our next week of class. And of course, I just want to remind you that you can always email me at jellis, E-L-L-I-S, at citytech.cuny.edu with any questions that you might have. I'll get back to you very quickly as soon as I can. And then also, I will mention this several times during the lecture today, I'll be having my office hours virtually online on Wednesdays between 3 and 5 p.m. So a 2-hour block. I'll be there. I'll post a link to our OpenLab site so you can just click on it and be able to meet with me then. If that day and time doesn't work for you, I can also arrange virtual office hours by appointment. All you got to do, send me an email and let me know what your availability is over say the next week or so. What days and times. Just to give you a heads up, usually the most availability I have is usually in the afternoons, but we can try to make things work however we can, because I want to make sure that I can answer any questions, give you the advice I would give you just the same as if we were meeting in person back on campus. So, again, welcome. Thanks for joining the class, and let's go ahead and get into the thick of things with OpenLab and the syllabus. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do with this being an online class is make sure that everyone knows where we're going to be meeting and doing our work online this semester, right? And for me, I like to use CityTech's OpenLab. This is a very special project that was originally funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities that CityTech has continued to grow over the years since it was first created just for CityTech. And it's something that I think is also advantageous for you all to use because the technology that underlies our OpenLab website is WordPress. So as you probably know, WordPress powers about a third of the websites on the web. So it can be useful to you to say that you've authored content on a WordPress site by the end of the semester through our class, and maybe you've already done that in some of your other classes as well. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that you know how to join the class and then find the syllabus, which we will then work our way through. Now, I've already sent you all an email that will have links that will send you directly to where you need to go in order to join our class on OpenLab. But I thought it would be useful maybe just to guide you through this in case it's easier for you to find it that way rather than just clicking directly on those links. So first off, if you've never used OpenLab before, which may be true of some of you in the class, if you go to openlab.citytech.cuny.edu, you're going to see this landing page. And the very first thing that you'll want to do is to sign up for an account. You want to click this link right here on the left-hand side. So I just click sign up, and then it's going to ask you questions that will set up your account. And the most important thing is that you got to supply your City Tech email address in order to set up an account, because this OpenLab is only for City Tech students and faculty and staff to use, not for anybody else. And then this way also, your account on OpenLab will be linked to your school identity through your email address. Now, one thing I do want to say to folks is that I know for a variety of reasons, some folks may not want to have or maybe use their real names on a site like this. I do, but you may not want to, and that's totally fine. And so you can see that when you're making the account, you're asked for different types of information, account details. The very first is like your first name, which is required, but this isn't actually displayed to the public. Same for last name. And then, of course, your City Tech email address, which you put in, and then you can confirm. But now here for like username, this is something you can make up that's completely your own, and it doesn't have to directly relate to your real name, your real identity. Now, in the next part, just underneath that, you can see public profile details. This is where you can put a display name in that can be whatever you want. Now, obviously, this is something that's attached to our class. This is something that's going to be reflecting on you in some way, whether it be in our class or someone else's class. So your display name should be something that's at least mindful of your professionalism and good taste. So don't put anything in there that would be like untoward or harassing or anything like that. But it should be something that you're comfortable with. So like for display name for me, I put in my real name there because I have my name tied to my professional identity. But again, you can put your real name there or you can put something else. And what I'll be able to do through the class website that we're going to be using, I'll know who you are. So you don't have to worry that you won't get credit for an assignment or something like that because you might not be using your real name. And again, for those folks that are using their real name, I don't want to in any way dissuade you from doing that. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that you have that right to either use your real name or to use a pseudonym, pen name, an obfuscating name, whatever it might be, through this website that we're going to be using for our work. Now, another thing that you probably ought to know about why I think it's useful to use OpenLab is that the work we do is going to be out in the open, hence the name OpenLab. That's not just open meaning open source, the underpinnings of it, but also the way the work takes place, that is done in a way that both your fellow classmates will be able to see what you're doing, and you can learn from what they're doing and vice versa. But what's really cool is that you'll be able to incorporate work that you might do in another class or in our class into your own e-portfolio. Now, the e-portfolio is something I'll talk about later in the semester, but it's something, if you haven't already thought about making one, can be incredibly useful for demonstrating and highlighting the types of things you know how to do, because you can create an e-portfolio on OpenLab, and you can link to it from your own personal website, from LinkedIn.com, from other social media websites that you might use that are relevant to your career and your work, as a way of showing the kinds of things that you've learned, the way that you have excelled in different classes, etc. But in many ways, you can think of the e-portfolio as the pics or it didn't happen phenomenon. That one of the things you'll find whenever you get out into the workplace, if you haven't already done that, is that you'll find that you got to be able to prove what you can do. And with an e-portfolio, it's very black and white because there will be evidence that you can point to, both from LinkedIn.com. You could even link to it from your resume. And I'll try to make time during the semester to talk about those types of things, especially if there's folks in class that are interested in like resume building, job application writing. If you don't have experience with that, later, whenever I talk about this first weekly writing assignment, which is going to involve you sending an email, and there's certain things you might want to learn in the class, you can mention some of those things in those emails so that I'll kind of know what we might want to look at together in addition to what we have to look at as a part of the learning outcomes for our class. Okay, so getting back to topic, we're here on OpenLab. You either have an account or you've made one, and you've gone to openlab.citytech.cuny.edu. Well, first thing, after you've made that account, go back to the home page, make sure you log in. And you can see here that I'm going to log in with my account in just a second. But I want to show you how things are going to look a little different for you than they do for me as a logged in user. So the first thing that you'll want to do is click on this little search icon in the upper right hand corner here. And in the search box, let's just type in the name for our class, which is type in ENG2575. All together, no spaces, and then hit the spyglass icon here and the magnifying glass icon, and that'll bring up some classes. And there's several sections of English 2575. You can see Professor Choi has some sections. Other folks here are teaching as well. Professor Rosenstein. You see some of my old classes down here. Well, what we want to look for is this icon of this cube in this perspectival 3D field. See, I teach science fiction, so I like using science fiction imagery, which is also in many ways a kind of technical communication. And this one right here represents our class, and you can see the writing just to the right of it, English 2575, Technical Writing Section OL70, Fall 2020. See my name there, Jason W. Ellis, Fall 2020. So you know that this is our place. There's only one of them here on the OpenLab. So let's click on that link. All right, so this page right here is going to be that first link that I sent you in your email, where I said go to this link and then click on Join Now underneath the avatar on the left hand side. Well, you can see there is no join now for me. That's because I'm not logged in and I've already joined the class because I obviously built it. But you will see after you've logged into OpenLab and go to this page, underneath the avatar here will be a link that says Join Now. Click that link. That will add you to our section of the class on OpenLab. And that way I'll be able to see you as a member and be able to grade your work, etc. And you'll also obviously be able to contribute work to the class for the assignment. So you got to join the class in order to do those things. So make sure you click Join Now one time, just wait a second, and then you'll be in. You don't have to click it multiple times because that link actually turns into a Leave Now class link, which will then take you out of the class. So we want to just do it one time, get you in, and then you're good. Now, after you've joined, you'll want to click on Visit Course Site over here on the right. And that's where all the magic is going to happen for our class this semester. That's the second link that I sent you in the email. So again, you can use the email to go directly to these places, or you can follow along in the video and they'll have just guided you where you need to be. So we're going to click on Visit Course Site. All right, so here we are in our OpenLab site. Now, a couple of things I want to point out is the bar up here at the top. You see that I have these links, sign up and log in. Well, I didn't log into OpenLab. So even though you might have clicked on that second link, if you haven't logged in yet, make sure you click over here on login so that you've logged into OpenLab, and we'll be able to see it as you should as someone who's joined the class. Now, normally you wouldn't see this, but they're asking me to verify. Okay, there we go. So I'm in the class now, And you can see that I have a bunch of options here in this drop-down menus. And I have a drop-down menu right here for English 2575 Technical Writing, which you also should see here, Dashboard, or one of your options. That'll come in important later on. But let's take a look around our site here. Now you can see that I have a welcome message is the very first thing that you're going to see here. Here's me in the subway, got my N95 mask on before taking the train some months ago. And I'm going to let you guys read over all this stuff, but this tells you just a little introduction to the class and what's going to be going on, some advice that I give you. So check that out later. But now over here on the left, you can see the menu for our OpenLab site. And this is going to change as the semester goes on, because I'm going to add some things over here so that you'll be able to navigate the work that you do as members of the class. But for right now, the main things are the syllabus, obviously, what we're going to go over in a minute. You can see there's a link for announcements. If you click announcements, every announcement that I send out, that's going to include like this welcome message. That's going to include whenever I post a link for office hours. If I see opportunities that might be useful to you guys that I'll give a plug to, I'll add those as announcements. Well, you can click announcements and they'll all show up. Now, the way the site's designed is everything will always show up in reverse chronological order over here in this column on the right-hand side of the page. But because as time goes on, we're going to get a lot of stuff there, that it's useful to use those links in order to find what you need. So we got announcements. This other link here is going to be for lectures. So this lecture that I'm recording right now with you all will wind up as a post that you can click on lectures and see, but it'll also always be over there on the right-hand column along with everything else. You just have to kind of scroll through to find things. So just keep in mind this menu on the left helps you find what you need in a more timely fashion. Same thing with weekly writing assignments. I'll be posting this later, which will detail what all you need to include for your weekly writing assignments. And then the same will be true for the major projects in the class, which I'll go over when we talk about the syllabus. So, one thing to keep in mind as I'm going through all this that I haven't mentioned yet is you really need to have some paper out right now. You need to make sure that you have something to write with so that you can be making notes as I'm talking, because even though I have a lot of this in writing, like on the syllabus, for example, I'll be posting a lot of this stuff on our OpenLab site. It's your responsibility to make sure that you essentially keep track of it all so that you're always dotting your I's, crossing your T's, always hitting all the marks on the things that you're required to do. One of the key aspects of technical writing is to prepare you to be a communicator and a writer in the workplace. And one of the things that you'll find is that you're not going to be babied whenever you're in the workplace. You're going to be given tasks. Sometimes the tasks you may be given may be just verbally told to you in passing even, in which case it's really useful to keep like a pad in your pocket that you can pull out and make notes on. But like here right now, as you're like making notes for our class, probably the easiest thing that I would recommend that you do is something that I'm going to illustrate on this piece of paper called the Cornell method. And simply on your notebook paper, you'll want to divide it, okay? Just draw some lines. Two lines, just like that. Now, what you use this particular method of note-taking for is keywords and topics. Go in this column over here on the left-hand side of the page, right? And so these keywords and topics will be like the things that stand out to you. Like if I pause and say, okay, we're going to talk about grades, write down grades over here on the left-hand side. And then in this space on the right, this is where You write down all the details that correspond to those keywords or topics. And then finally, there's that space down here at the bottom. Probably wondering what the hell's going on with that. Well, this is something that may be helpful for our class, but may actually be more useful to you in some of your other classes, and it's called where you put your summary. And so after you've completed a page of notes, like after you get out of class, go back through all the notes that you've made during a particular class and summarize it like in a sentence or two. Like, what is that page of notes about? Why that's useful is it helps both your brain to remember the things that you've written on your pages of notes, but when you go back to study, like before an exam, which in our class we don't have any exams, what is important in our class are the deliverables that you create, the projects that you make, the writing that you do. But in other classes, obviously you have exams. Well, the Cornell method can be incredibly helpful for studying because with those summaries that you write at the bottom of each page, you're able to quickly go through and review your notes without having to read through all the minutia, unless, of course, as you're reading a summary, you're like, oh, I don't remember this very well. Well, that's when you can go back up from the summary into the keywords and the details to find the stuff that you need to study a little bit more closely to remember for an exam. So I would recommend you start that right now before we get into the syllabus, so that you can jot down anything that you think is really important that you need to remember, as well as if maybe you have a question, you can jot down a question over in the details, and then you can send me an email later, ask me to say something about. All right, so syllabus. So the syllabus I've made as a page on our OpenLab site. So there's nothing to download, no PDFs, anything like that. And if there's any changes for like the schedule, which as you'll see in a minute, I've noted as a tentative schedule, meaning that we can always push something back if we need to, as long as there's time available to do it. I won't ever, of course, move something forward, okay? Don't ever worry about that. But if we as a class were to, like a bunch of you were to say, we need more time on X assignment, well, we'll try to make adjustments for that kind of thing. I'm always open to that as long as folks talk to me. So syllabus, at the very top you can see there's a table of contents. So I mean you can like jump to the different sections, but we're just going to go through it point by point. So I'm going to scroll down. All right, so this again is for technical writing, English 2575, OL 70 section. And again, we are fully online, and we are meeting online asynchronously, meaning we do not meet at the same time. A synchronous class would be one where we're all meeting at the same time. It could be all on video chat, could be all like in a classroom, etc. But we're meeting asynchronously. Hopefully to make this as amenable to everybody's schedules, right? Here are my contact and office hours information. So Professor Ellis, I have my virtual office hours, Wednesdays, 3 until 5. I'll always post a link on OpenLab. I'll probably be using Google Hangouts because that's has the lowest bar for entry. Like, just click the link. As long as you're using, like, say, Google Chrome on your Android or on iOS or on like a laptop computer or a desktop computer, you'll be able to get in no problem. Of course, other browsers are supported as well, but if you're using Chrome, it just makes it a whole lot easier. But that way also you don't have to install extra software like Zoom, WebEx, etc. But you can see here, besides those office hours, I'm also available by appointment. So don't think because you can't meet on Wednesdays, we can't have office hours. Just let me know when you're available for a week, and I'll try to find one day that I'm available. Because you have to understand that besides teaching, preparing for the class, doing my research, having meetings for a lot of other things, which are all virtual now, that there's a lot of times I'm not available, but then there's a lot of windows in between that I am. So we can try to find a place that matches your schedule and mine for those other appointment office hours. Not a big deal, but just make sure you let me know ahead of time and give me some options. Again, my email address is jellis@citytech.cuny.edu. And then I also have a professional blog at dynamicsubspace.net, which you can check out because I post things there that might be useful for you or relevant to the class or that you just might find interesting. All right, course description. So we'll read through this part. Technical writing is about managing complexity. It is about providing the right information in the right way for the right audience at the right time. It is about communicating technical ideas using sound, rhetorical choices, and synergistic modalities. For example, woven, or written, oral, visual, electronic, and nonverbal modes, which I'm going to talk about at the end of today's lecture, while maintaining the highest level of professionalism and ethics. In this class, you'll have invaluable opportunities to learn theory, skills, and heuristics, or learn shortcuts of technical writing through projects relevant to your degree program. And you will develop a set of documents that you can include in your professional portfolio. So again, I want you to be thinking about everything that you do in our class for those big projects, how they might be beneficial to you. That I give you like a set of parameters for what you need to create in a given project, but the subject of that project can be something that you choose that has relevance to maybe what you are studying in your major. It could be something you want to do in your career, or you may choose to learn about something that you have just an interest in, whether it be a hobby or want to find out more about. All of that's fair game. But the main thing is to think about how to make these things you make in my class useful to you once you're out of my class, okay? Don't think of everything that you do in here as simply just earning a grade. Yes, you'll be getting that, but if you can find ways to make, getting the grade and getting something useful out of the class that you can do something more with later, then that's like win-win. So keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. Now, the learning objectives and prerequisites. This is something that's hosted on the English department website, so I'm just going to open this in a new link. And I'll let you guys read over this on your own, but basically what this is the learning outcomes for every English 2570 class, 75 class that's taught at City Tech. This is decided on by the faculty at the school. So that means that every English 2575 class does these things. So our class will do these things, but based on my own background, what I know that you need to know when you get out of here and get in the workplace, things that I think might make the class more interesting, I build into the class on top of these basic requirements. So there's always that little bit of variability, but you can be rest assured that the major projects in our class map onto these requirements. So you can look over this on your own a little bit later, and you can ask me questions if you have them about it. All right, so we got required text here. These are some really high quality, free online textbooks and resources that I've used for years in my other classes and 2575 that we'll be using in our class as well. I link to them in specific places in the schedule at the bottom of the syllabus. But for your reference here, there's some things that we won't be looking at that you might want to look at on your own. Because these are huge textbooks. There's a lot of information in them. And they're already been vetted, both by me and other professors in the field. So check those out when you have a chance. Just if you, when you have some free time, see what's available there. Learn about them, learn their organization, because the more you know about them, the more they'll be useful to you. Because while I can point you to some specific things that I think will help you in the class, I can't point you to everything. Part of it has to do with I would be overwhelming you with information. There's also the consideration that not everybody's going to look at all those different things. So my suggestion to you, based on my own experience at the University of Hard Knocks, is to use these tools by spending time with them, learning them. I'm not suggesting you have to read every word on every page of them, but by knowing them a little bit better, it helps you in the long run. So when you have that time available, I would recommend taking a look at them before we actually use them in the class. And then, of course, also you keep them as references after you get out of the class because they're, as I said, invaluable. Required resources, obviously you need to have access to a computer to be able to get online. You got to have access to your City Tech email. That's how I will be contacting you about things, and you also need access to it to join OpenLab. You need to have your OpenLab account. You need to join our OpenLab class, which we already talked about. And I always recommend students use different cloud-based storage and writing tools so that they can do their work. They can do their work collaboratively, as you'll find some of the projects we talk about in the class will be collaborative in nature. But also you got to make sure that you're always saving your work, and to save your work for the long term, because what you might find is something you've done in my class or another class, a few years from now, might trigger a memory whenever you're in the workplace, and then you say, I really wish I still had that one essay that I wrote or that one PowerPoint that I made because I could use it right now in my job. Well, by saving all this stuff and not letting any of it disappear and knowing where it is, you can have access to those things. I speak from personal experience. I did some very difficult, hard work on some projects using regular expressions on a database project that I helped someone do background research for a book they were writing, and I lost all that. You can't, maybe you can understand how frustrating it is when you might not be an expert on regular expressions, when you find that particular, incantation, so to speak, that works, and then you've lost it. It can be incredibly frustrating and disappointing. So don't lose your work. Make sure you've had it backed up in lots of places. All right, moving right along. And of course, keep in mind, you can always pause, come back to this stuff at any point in time. I know that in particular, this first lecture is going to be a lot longer than the other ones will be because we have a lot of stuff to cover. But just make a note in your notebook where you might pause the video, and then you can always restart it and go back to that point later on. So this may be one of the most important things that you're wondering about in the class, which is how the grade distribution works. What are the projects that you have to do in order to get that A that you want in the class? At least I hope you want an A, and I hope you'll work for it. So the way I've divided the projects up is that the first projects in the class are individual based, and then most of the projects toward the end of the class are all collaboratively based, meaning you're going to work with a team of people in the class to complete them. And we'll talk about how that works later on. We're actually going to have some teamwork built in the early part of the class to help you with your individual projects by giving you some peer review feedback, because obviously you want to make sure that your writing is top notch and up to par before you give it to me, because I'm going to grade it. So you want to make sure that you get some advice from other people in order to get that writing up to the level that you want. But don't worry, I'm going to build all that's built into the class, and I'll explain to you when we get to those points how that will work. So the one individual assignment that you're going to have throughout the semester every week is going to be a weekly writing assignment. And this is 15% of your grade. It's like the easiest 15% to get, because as long as you do it and you show me best effort, you always get full credit. But now where I have a problem is if I see something's done half-assed or incorrectly, or even worse, plagiarized, well, then we're going to have a conversation, whether it be about giving you an option to redo it, or if it's something egregious enough because repeat offenses or whatever, then that's something I would have to report. So the main thing is make sure all the work you do in the class is your own. We'll talk about how to properly cite things throughout the semester, so don't worry about that. I'll help you with that. But for these individual assignments, if you do the work and you do your best on that work, you're going to be really pleased with your grade on this part of the class, because it's very easy to get for those students that take the spirit of the class to heart. And these individual weekly writing assignments, Basically, I will tell you about them at the beginning of 1 week of class and explain like, what you need to do. And basically you'll have all week long to get it done. This first weekly writing assignment that you do for this week is going to involve writing an email to me. And I'm going to ask you to write some specific things in it. Later individual weekly writing assignments will be you post comments on our OpenLab site or create a post on our OpenLab site. And they'll be on different things. Sometimes you might have to read a magazine article that you find through the library's website, and I'll show you how to do that. Some things might be writing a different kind of letter that might be to a customer or to a boss, which obviously these are different audiences, so you would write them differently. But in each of these are trying to give you practice with writing, give you practice with thinking about the rhetorical choices you make in each of the different writing assignments. And then also that regular writing is something that has been shown through research to automatically improve your writing. Because the thing about writing is that there's like no shortcut that I can give you that's going to just automatically make you a better writer. Writing, just like if you think of like building muscles, is something that you have to work at over time. You put in the time, the energy, the practice, you get better at it. If you slack off, don't do it that much, don't put in the effort, obviously you're not going to grow as a writer. So that's one way that we can help you guys improve over time is through this weekly writing assignment. And that's 15% of your grade. Now we get into the major projects in the class. The first one is going to be this 500-word summary of a journal article that you'll find through the library's databases. That's 10% of your grade. And with this particular assignment, we're going to talk about it next week in detail. And I'll show you how to find your journal article. We're going to talk about how to cite it using APA format. And we're going to talk about what you need to talk about in this summary. But basically, you're going to take something that is complex information that's maybe several pages long or even longer and compress down the main ideas of it into 500 words. A 500-word summary is roughly 2 pages double-spaced, if we figure each double-spaced page is 250 words. So not very long. Now, after you've written it, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get peer review feedback. That's where we're going to start working in teams on getting that feedback. That's something we can do by email, and I'll show you how to do that. And then after you've gotten that feedback, you revise your work, and then you're going to submit it to me. It'll be something that you post on our OpenLab site. That'll be the very first big thing that you post on our OpenLab site. So that'll be coming up. The next individual project is going to be a 750 to 1,000 word expanded definition, and this will be 10% of your grade. And basically with this assignment, you're going to choose a technical term. It could be something that you're studying in your other classes in your major. It could be something in your career. So like, for example, you could choose something like computer, Wi-Fi, corrugated cardboard. It could be anything, but you choose a term that has some technical aspect in nature, and then you're going to research how it's defined and also how that word is used within discourse. Like, how do people use that word when they're writing journal articles, magazine articles, newspaper articles? So that way it gives you a better understanding of the word, not just what does it technically mean, but how do people actually use it when they're writing sentences involving that word? So that'll be coming up a little, in a few weeks from now. Then the last big individual project is going to be a 1,500 to 2,000 word instructional or training manual. That's 15% of your grade. And basically with this assignment, what you're going to do is think about a process. It could be how to install Windows 10. It could be how to build a computer from scratch. How to set up a Wi-Fi network in your apartment. How to change an alternator on a 64.5 Ford Mustang. I mean, anything that involves a process where you break things down step by step, that you can include screenshots or pictures that you take to reinforce the writing that you do, that'll all go into this instructional or training manual that you'll make. You also have options to do research to help you enrich the content that you put into that instruction manual. And again, this can be something that's related to your major. It can be something you're interested in, your hobbies, whatever. In my last class, I had a range of things from a student who showed how to build your own electric driving system for a cruising skateboard, all the way to building a Pi-hole firewall for your personal Wi-Fi network. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people go about writing these instruction and training manuals. Now we get into the real meat of the class, which are going to be these collaborative projects here. Okay. Now, the collaborative projects all work together. Okay. They build on one another. They're not separate. Okay. So the thing that grounds as the foundation for the collaborative projects is this 4,000 to 6,000 word analytical research report. This would be a research report on a scientific or technical problem that you as a team identify, that you want to know more about and explain to others what it is and what's going on with it. And each person in the team would be responsible for, about 1,000 to 1,500 words of that final report. Now, you all will get to delegate how that plays out. Like someone might want to focus more on writing, say, the introduction and conclusion. Someone else might say, well, I'm really good at research, so let me do some of the research writing and I'll do like an annotated bibliography that we can then incorporate into our research report. So there's different ways that you as a team can work together where everybody pulls their weight, but you can also rely on what your particular interests or strengths are as you're developing this research report. Now, that research report is going to be the basis then for a collaborative oral presentation, meaning a presentation that you and your teammates will give by speaking. And obviously, since we're not meeting in person, it'll be something that you'll have to do using video. Now, when we get to this point, I'll give you guys some options about how to do this. One option would be to have every team member record a part of your script, and then one person would then edit all of those clips together into a single video that you would post to YouTube or Vimeo, and then share with us on OpenLab. Or when we get to this next part of the collaborative projects, which is a website advertising a product or service responding to the analytical research report and oral presentation, is that you could use individual pieces of video that each team member makes as embellishment, as enriching different pages on that website that you make. Now, I don't want anybody to freak out about this website requirement. It's 10% of your grade, and I'm going to give you instructions on how to basically create this on OpenLab by building your own OpenLab site to host this website content. So, and I'm not expecting people to be designers. I'm not going to be grading this on like the whiz-bang stuff that we see on professional websites. Obviously, if you have skill set in that, you can draw on that. But what I'll be looking at more is how that website is leveraging what you've already done in your research report and your oral presentation based on your research report, basically summarizing your research report to create the content for your website. Okay? And then finally, the very last thing, after you've done all that, you'll have a brief report to write on how you all collaborated. And this would be talking about what was each individual's delegated responsibilities, how you decided to work together, different teams in the past have done different things. Some teams I've had have done everything by email. Others have relied on Google Docs for a lot of their work. I've had teams that use Discords. They would create their own Discord server that they would use to communicate with one another. Some have used GitHub. Whatever works for you and your team that you want to leverage as a collaboration, teamwork-based tool, you can write about it. Tell me about it. Because then that also feeds into like your experience, which you can then relate. If you're ever in job interviews, like, yeah, I worked on this team-based project, and we all were able to pull this thing off with each of us working in different parts of the city, never seeing each other throughout the semester, perhaps. But we were able to collaborate using a combination of a Discord server, Google Docs, and even like using like maybe say Line, instant messaging or something. So whatever you decide to use, you can like explain to me like how you guys pull that off. Because I think it's important that the decisions you make to do a collaborative project like this are almost as important as what the actual deliverable is. Because at this point you need to be thinking about how can I use different tools, which I know you all have a lot of experience with in different ways, both from different classes and your personal experience, that you can repurpose, use for your own needs on this project. All right, so that's the breakdown of all the projects and the grades. Again, email me if you got questions. We'll go over each of these in more detail when I introduce them in the class. And also with each project, I will give you deadlines. I'll break things down. So don't think I just like mention like, oh, in a couple of weeks you have this thing due and I never talk about it again. It doesn't work like that. I'll make sure that we break it down so that everybody knows what needs to get done, how to get the different individual parts done on time, and then bring it all together for the final deliverable that you give to me. All right, so other policies for the class. Policy for late work. I'll let you guys read over this stuff, but the main idea for due dates, like for weekly assignments, are all on the schedule below, which we'll take a look at. But I don't want anybody to think that you get so far behind that you can't salvage the semester, okay? The main thing is that this is a class where we are all working together. I want you to succeed. And as long as you're putting in the work and you're making the effort, then we will try to find ways to make sure that happens as long, obviously, as you do the work. So if something comes up and someone in your family gets sick, you get sick, you lose your job, whatever it is that derails your ability to succeed in the class, send me an email. Let me know what's going on as much as you feel comfortable letting me know. Obviously, you don't have to tell me everything because, I'm going to trust you, okay? And so just let me know if something is causing you problems, and then let's brainstorm together how to make a new schedule, a new plan to get you back on track. Now, this is especially important when we get to the collaborative projects because on those projects, you are all working as a team together. So if as a team something happens, it's going to cause things not to go right, I want everybody to reach out to me and we'll have a powwow, whether it be by email together or if we like set up, one of my office hours where we can all meet together, we can arrange that kind of thing. But the main thing is like just keep me involved in the loop with anything that might be going on that could hurt your ability to succeed in our class because I will make every effort that I can to help get you back on track, okay? And again, so I'm seeing the work being done. I see the effort. That to me means a lot. And so I'm willing to go as far as I can to help you out as long as that's being done. But now, one of the things, though, to keep in mind, the way the class is designed is that it is obviously a lot better to try to keep up as much as possible as we move through because it can be, and I've had cases where it's just virtually impossible for someone to try to catch up on everything, like say in the last couple weeks of class, okay? So don't like just disappear and then come back at the end and say, hey, I need some help getting caught up. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that's even possible. Maybe it is, and you can talk to me, but I don't want to set any unrealistic expectations, because it is a lot of work. And by spreading out the work, obviously it's a lot easier to handle. Okay? So again, have questions about that, let me know. Attendance policy. Well, obviously we're meeting asynchronously, so we don't have a day and time that we're meeting. But what I will be looking for in order to meet the requirements for reporting your attendance in the class is if you're logging into our OpenLab site and doing that weekly writing assignment, and then also turning in the major projects in the class. As long as those things are happening in a timely manner, then you're always getting recorded as being present in the class. But like if you suddenly don't turn in anything and you don't email me, well, then it could lead to failure in the class. It could even lead to a grade of WU, an unofficial withdrawal, like if you drop off the face of the earth before the end of the semester. Please don't let that happen. Email me or have someone email me if something comes up so we can figure out how to avoid that. Required format for papers. Everything in our class is using the APA style, and I've given you a link here about how that works at the Purdue OWL website. This is a great website that gives you everything that you need to know about APA for our class. So use this religiously when you're formatting your papers and citing the writing of others in your papers. And we're going to go over that during the semester, so don't sweat that too much. Student accommodation policy. This I do want to read through. Qualified students with disabilities under applicable federal, state, and city laws seeking reasonable accommodations or academic adjustments must contact the Center for Student Accessibility for information on CityTech's policies and procedures to obtain such services. Students with questions on eligibility or the need for temporary disability services should also contact the center, and here's like the information for the Center for Student Accessibility, including their phone number and their website, which has an email address there. So if you do have a disability that you need accommodations for in the class, just get in touch with them. They'll find out what it is. They will create like what are the things that I need to do to make sure that you're successful in the class, and then they will share that with me via you. So make sure you get in touch with them if that needs to happen, because I want to make sure that everybody obviously can take part in the class. But do reach out to the Center for Student Accessibility if there's any issues that they can help you with, and obviously help me with, because they tell me what I need to do. This is another important thing that I'm gonna read this, but this is built into everything we're going to be doing through the semester. So I will talk about this again later on, but this is like the official policy on academic integrity. Students who work with information, ideas, and texts owe their audience and sources accuracy and honesty in using, crediting, and citing sources. As a community of intellectual and professional workers, the college recognizes its responsibility for providing instruction and information literacy and academic integrity, offering models of good practice, and responding vigilantly and appropriately to infractions of academic integrity. Accordingly, academic dishonesty is prohibited in CUNY and at New York City College of Technology, and is punishable by penalties including failing grades, suspension, and expulsion. The complete text of the college policy on academic integrity may be found in the catalog. I'll add a link there for the catalog, but just to show you, if you've never seen the CityTech catalog before, is just do a Google or a DuckDuckGo search for CityTech College Catalog. And you see this first link here, Academic Catalog at Academic CityTech. This shows you links to PDFs of the college catalog. The college catalog is basically your contract with the school. It lists all the classes, requirements, policies, everything that has to do with your education at CityTech. And so I'm going to click on this link here for the spring 2021. And so you can see here, like on the first page, mission statement, accreditation, like how we're accredited, what are our education goals at CityTech. But if we go over the third page, you got the table of contents. And this gives you all the other information about like your academic standards, policies, procedures, degree requirements, everything you need to know, all the details on the different classes you take, everything is inside this. So this is something, if you haven't looked at before and you're not close to graduation, you probably ought to look at, because it might be beneficial for you making decisions on which classes to take, etc. Okay, so that's where the complete text of the academic integrity policy is. Then, right, here we are, the tentative schedule for the semester. So this is everything basically that we're going to be doing this semester, including due dates and everything else. Now, since our class doesn't have a particular day and time of meeting, what I've done is I've divided the class up by weeks. And basically I've done it with, you're arranging it with the first day of the semester, which this semester is a Wednesday, to the next Wednesday as being 1 week. Now, I'm perfectly understanding that as we get started in the semester, that everybody needs a little bit of time for adjustment. So if this doesn't work immediately for everyone, I don't want you to think like, oh, I turned in something a day late, I'm not going to get any credit. Yeah, you'll get credit, but if you can, just give me a heads up. Like shoot me a quick email saying like, look, I need another day. I'll try to get things back on track next week. That's helpful for me, so I'll be looking out amongst all the hundreds of emails that I get every day for your work that may be turned in a little bit late, which again, at the beginning is okay. Because I do want everybody to get adjusted to like how we're going to be doing things in the class. And so with this weekly arrangement, on the Wednesday of each week, I'll post the lecture. I'll post that week's weekly writing assignment. And basically you're going to have a whole week to watch the lecture, make your notes, do the weekly writing assignment, and then of course do whatever project we happen to be working on at that time. And as you'll see how that works. So our first week is beginning this Wednesday, August 26th, and runs through September 2nd. Okay? And we're going to introduce the class, review the syllabus, what we're doing right now. I'm going to give you a refresher lecture on rhetoric and composition in just a few minutes. I'm going to give you the first weekly writing assignment. Basically, you're going to be sending an introductory email to me. And then before you do that, though, I do ask that you take a look at these readings here. This reading here is by Laura Portwood Stacer, How to Email Your Professor Without Being Annoying as Fuck, right? You don't want to do that. This actually has some really good advice for everybody, as things I wish I'd known about when I was a student a million years ago. So take a look at that first before you send me that email. And I'll tell you in a little bit some of the specific content-wise things that I want you to include in that email. But this advice for like how to address your professors can be like really super important. I think you'll find that the way that I am, I'm very understanding, and also I don't get uptight like if someone weren't to refer to me like as Professor Ellis. I think it's cool if you do, because I've put in a lot of time and years to earn that title. But at the same time, I'm unlike some professors I know who can get bent out of shape about it. But for me, looking out for you, I want you to be prepared for those situations where you do need to use the right decorum, where you need to use that professionalism so that you always look the best in other people's eyes, even if like some of the things they may be asking you to do about like how they use their title or whatever else isn't something that like can cause you to trip up. And some of these smaller assignments like this have that intention behind them. It's not because I'm trying, I don't want you guys to be like your normal selves, but just to be aware that there are different audiences and that we have to adjust ourselves to those audiences, their needs, their expectations. And I mean, that's all the technical communication is at its basis level, okay? So all this leads into everything else that we're going to be doing. But now the second reading here gives you an overview of what is technical communication. It's the first chapter from a textbook on technical communication that we have access to online. And I think it gives a good overview. That's a good overview that's useful for us because it really hones in on the collaborative nature of technical writing. Because the thing is that you'll find when you're in the workplace is almost everything is collaborative. Very rarely do we do anything just solely by ourselves as like the lone mad scientist, the lone inventor. That everything we do is involving lots of different people. And that's particularly true with technical writing. So I think it's useful to read that chapter so you kind of understand in broad terms everything that we're going to be doing this semester. And I'll talk about some of that stuff in my lecture next week. So I'm going to prime you by having you read this chapter now before I talk about what are some of the highlights that I want you to know about. That helps you by you reading this before you hear some of the things I have to say. That reading gives you a hook to hang some of the ideas that I give you on. Whereas if you don't read that before my lecture, then obviously you're going to learn something from what I have to say, but it may not stick as well. And so some of these readings that I give you do have that intention of priming you. That's the term that we use for introducing ideas to help them be stickier in your mind before you actually encounter like the highlights of that. All right, so getting on to week 2. See, this is starting next Wednesday, September 2nd. So you'll see that the ending date for one week is always going to be the beginning date for the next week, September 2nd to September 9th. And you can see due, last week's weekly writing assignment. So today, I'm giving you a weekly writing assignment. It will be due before next Wednesday when I've posted like our lectures and stuff. Again, if you need a little extra time, like when we're just getting started, just let me know. Drop me an email or something. But otherwise, whatever I introduce like the previous week, there's going to be some follow-up due date to that. And with the weekly writing assignment, it will always be the beginning of the next week. Now, you can see I'll also introduce the 500-word summary next week. That will be your first individual big project. I make a note here, see OpenLab and listen to lecture for new weekly writing assignments. So I'll introduce also the next weekly writing assignment, which will come due week 3, September 9th, September 16th. And then I also give you another reading here, how to summarize a research article. So in the lecture, I'll talk a little bit about that as well, but I want you to take a look at this because this gives you some concrete ideas about how to do summarization that might be beneficial for you if you haven't done a lot of that in your other writing classes or even in your other major classes before. Going on to week 3, we got we're going to do peer review for the 500-word summary, and then week 4, the 500-word summary is going to be due. Then I'll introduce the 750-word expanded definition. We're going to do some stuff with that. We will do peer review on the 750-word expanded definition week 6. Week 7, we got the 750-word expanded definition due. Then we'll introduce the instruction manual. We will do some things that will come due for the training manual, the instruction-training manual for week 8. Then week 9, we'll do peer review on the instruction manual. Then week 10, the instruction manual will be due. And I'll introduce the collaborative projects, and that's where you're going to be working with others in the class. And we're going to take a look, I'm going to be doing peer review with you guys on those individual assignments. And if those teams work out, then we might keep them for the collaborative project. So I would encourage you to get to know the folks that I'm going to team you up with. I'm going to try to team everyone up as closely around their majors as possible. But there may be some folks that get matched up with folks that may not be in their immediate major, but I think that you'll be able to find some common ground in order to work together on these things. But if there's any ever issues about the people you work with before week 10, make sure you let me know, because I do want to make sure that everybody has people to work with on the teams going into these collaboration projects at the end. Week 11, I'm going to get you guys to send me a prospectus for your collaborative research report. Week 12, you're going to send me an outline and any writing that you might have done by then. You will let me know about how you're delegating the work to each other by week 13. Oh, week 14 here. We'll circulate your research report draft between the teams. So it's whatever you got up to that point, you'll circulate it with the other teams to get feedback from different eyes. Then week 15, this is when everything will come due. And in those preceding weeks, I'll be going over like how to prepare your oral presentation, how to build your website, all this kind of stuff. And then you can see here that with week 15, that's very early, right? That's before finals, December 9th. And then the last day of finals is going to be Monday, December 21st. Monday, December 21st is when everything has to have been given to me. It can't come after that. I would really appreciate it. You turn in your work before then. But obviously, you know, I know things are going to come up which may cause folks needing to have a little bit more time. In which case, all you got to do is let me know ahead of time, and I'll remind you guys of this later on, but let me know like you need that extra time, so I'll be looking for your work. Because for other folks that have already given me everything, I'm going to calculate their grades so that I can get grades in as quickly as possible before the Christmas holiday. All right, so again, I know I've given you guys a lot of information on this very quickly. So I hope you've been keeping some notes so you can send me questions you might have of things that stuck out in your mind as you were listening to me and as we were going over this. And again, if we need to adjust some of these things, we can, but nothing will ever be moved up. Don't ever think I'll ask you to turn something in early, okay? But if we need more time on something, as much as we have some wiggle room, we'll try to make that happen. All right, so in the next part of the lecture, I'm going to talk about some refresher ideas that I want you guys to know about. And then I'll tell you about the first weekly writing assignment, which will be that email that you send to me. Okay? So let's get into that.